And now, ladies and gentlemen, I know you didn't expect to meet. You prepared, Uncle James?
I cannot tell a lie, Fred. I am.
And what unusual occupation have you peeked in on during the past week?
Well, I was sitting in a movie theater the other day watching the newsreels and got to wondering about those men who risked their lives to bring the news of the day to millions of people.
Well, don't tell me, Uncle James.
Yes, Fred. Our guest tonight is one of them. He's the ace cameraman of the Movietone news staff, Mr. Jess Kizis.
Well, good evening, Jess.
Good evening, Fred.
Too bad you didn't have your camera. We could have snapped that reception there. Jess, how long? I could have used it many a week up here. You know, we don't get any. Jess, how long have you been contributing your celluloid mite to the weekly newsreel?
12 years, Fred.
12 years, and I imagine that during your long career, you have recorded for posterity, never having met them, of course, I wouldn't be familiar with the work. But you have recorded for posterity more than your quota of history in the making.
Yes, I've covered a wide variety of events and happenings, all right.
Now, what are some of the more dramatic episodes you have recorded on celluloid, Jess?
Well, there was the Flint sit-down strikes, the Wyoming Valley floods, the Coney Island fire, and the Morrow Castle and Mohawk disasters.
Well, between strikes, floods, fires, and shipwrecks, you really ought to be an authority on catastrophes.
Catastrophes, unfortunately, make the most exciting newsreel shots, Fred.
Yes, that is only too true. You know, there's one thing that always puzzles me, Jess. No matter what goes on, there always seems to be a newsreel cameraman there to get his pictures. How do you fellas know when things are going to happen? Who decides what happenings are to be filmed?
Our assignment editor.
Your assignment editor. He tells you where to go in a nice way?
Yes, Fred.
Well, tell me, Jess, how can the Movietone News cover events in Japan, Italy, and Perth Amboy so effectively and quickly?
The company has a staff of some 200 newsreel cameramen scattered all over the world.
Oh, and they take care of everything?
Most everything. We also have a large number of freelance men who augment the regular staff. They cover any stories that pop up in unusual places.
Well, what becomes of all of these pictures? What do you do with old newsreels? You can always find a use for yesterday's newspaper, but you can't wrap up a herring in a newsreel.
Old newsreels are filed away, Fred. In the vaults of the Movietone News, we have a copy of every foot of film that's ever been shot.
That, akin to the centipede, must run into feet.
Yes, we have about 50 million feet.
Go ahead, please. A woman overappreciated my last remark. I had to quell her. What did you say? You have over 50 million feet. 50 million feet of film. Say, Jess, you add a Donald Duck and a travelogue, and you've got a full-length show at any neighborhood theater. But tell me, have you ever been injured in the line of duty?
Yes, I've had my hand badly cut by a blimp propeller trying to get some freak shots, and I've been slugged a few times working at riots, but it's all a part of the game.
Ah, yes. As the hunter said when the antlers fell off of the dead deer, it's part of the game. Have you had... Now, quiet, please. We've got to get on here. But, have you had to perform any unusual physical feats to record some important footage?
Well, to take the view from the top of the Triborough Bridge, I climbed the cables carrying a 100-pound camera.
Well, that's certainly a lot of trouble to go to get a picture of Flushing, isn't it? Has your life ever been in jeopardy?
Yes, Fred. I covered the Machado Revolution in Havana with bullets flying all around me.
Instead of shooting your subjects, it was practically vice versa. Say, what about celebrities? Have many famous folks strayed within range of your focus?
Yes, I've taken Colonel Lindbergh, Herbert Hoover, Howard Hughes, President Roosevelt, Al Smith, and many others.
Is any one of the front-page celebrities, personalities, a favorite with the cameraman?
I'd say Postmaster Farley was, Fred.
Postmaster Farley? Well, he doesn't go around handing out stamps to the boys between close-ups, does he?
No, but he's always ready to cooperate.
We'll know for sure in 1940. What about, look at Jim, that old Republican chortling. But what about the sporting luminaries, Jess?
Max Bayer's my favorite. Max likes to clown around before the camera, and so does Tony Galindo.
Oh, yes. I've seen Tony in a lot of pictures. I've seen a lot of Tony in one picture, too. I hear he was pretty mad at one theater manager last week.
That's unusual, Fred. Tony's generally good-natured.
Well, I know, but one theater showed a newsreel of Tony training for the Lewis fight. It was followed by a trailer that said, "Coming next week, Doc Victory."
I see what you mean.
I sensed that you would, Jeff. Now, in all your years of newsreel activities, what has been your biggest scoop?
I guess the time I covered the capture of Two-Gun Crowley.
Oh, I remember LaFair Crowley. They cornered him in a rooming house uptown. Well, how did you know the police were going into action at that?
I didn't. I just happened to be driving through that block when the excitement began.
What did you do?
I got my camera out of the car and was grinding away even before the police commissioner got there.
Well, that's certainly quick work. You know, I once heard about a newsreel man who got to a fire before Mayor LaGuardia. I don't believe that. After all, you can't do the impossible, you know. I saw a picture yesterday where the mayor showed up with a fish in one paper. Say, I just happened to think about another. A dead heat at the market, I heard. Say, I just happened to think, Jess, about another Movietone feature. Do you ever make any of those comedy Movietone shots for Lou Lair?
Yes, I have made quite a few.
Well, say, tell me, how do you get Lou's picture up in the corner of those news shots? Do you have to take Lou out and hang him up in the hippopotamus cage or wherever it is?
No, we just photograph the scenes. Lou gets up there the best way he can.
And he's been doing it lately, too, I've noticed. But what about that liquid double talk? Do you photograph that?
Lou dubs in his own dialogue back in the studio.
Say, do you think confidentially, after looking at Europe, that Lou still thinks monkeys are the craziest people?
I wouldn't know, Fred.
Well, the next time I see some monkeys, I'm going to ask them how they feel about Lou. But enough of this Darwinian chit-chat. Tell me, Jess, what is the most recent important assignment you have covered?
The arrival of the King and Queen here in New York.
Say, how close did you get to their majesties?
I was about 6 feet from them at the fair.
It must have been quite a thrill.
Yes, Fred, it was one of those experiences that make my job so fascinating. As far as I'm concerned, there's no other job nowhere like it.
In other words, the newsreel cameraman is a soldier of fortune.
Without the fortune, yes.
Well, thanks a lot for this little verbal hike around your tripod, Jess. Now, before you go, I wonder if you'd do me a favor. If you could take a newsreel picture for me, sort of a minor catastrophe.
I'd be glad to, Fred.
Say, could you just shoot a few feet of Mr. Van Steeden up on his podium there?
Is that a catastrophe?
Mr. Van Steeden is a catastrophe with skin on it.
I get it. Good night, Fred.
Thank you, and good night, Mr. Jess Kizis.